right, here it is, guys. The Ernest Brown, the fourth video you guys have been waiting for. I'm back. I'm happy to be back. Jake Ellenbogen here. This is the Jake Ellenbogen channel. As you guys know, I do all sorts of crazy videos. I do stuff on the MCU. I do stuff on sports, all of that. But a lot of you guys are Rams fans, and a lot of you guys like those film breakdowns. Now, I don't do film breakdowns as much anymore. They take incredibly long amount of time. But what I do is, at least, and this is the format I've been rolling with, is I cut up film, make it kind of like a highlight reel with some good, some bad, and I discuss my final product, my strengths, my weaknesses, everything I took away from scouting that said prospect. So this is what we're gonna do. Is Ernest Brown. I never really had an opportunity to scout during the draft season. I went through, watched about 5 games of his, whatever I could find. On all 22, and so I'm gonna give you my thoughts on him while also showing you some film. So if you guys like this already, can't imagine you don't. No, I'm kidding. Be sure to hit that like. It it really does help me out, as well as dropping a comment. Let's discuss, what are your thoughts on Ernest Brown? Can this guy contribute? I'm gonna go through my thoughts, and we're gonna keep this. We're gonna have this highlight reel going. Just like the Ernest Brown, the Ernest Jones video. But yeah, so for those of you who don't know Ernest Brown, he was drafted 174th overall by the LA Rams in the 5th round. He is more of like a tweener pass rusher, kind of a 5 tech, but of course it's a 3-4 defense most likely he'll be operating under. So, it's going to be a little weird for him, just kind of like it was with Morgan Fox, who's now with Carolina. This is a top 20 defensive end coming out of high school. He was a top 20 defensive end recruit. And so that's something to mention, something to keep in mind. He's 6'4", he's 270. Like I said, very similar to Morgan Fox, but there's more to it than that. I'll get into that later on. He only started 9 games. So that's a cause for concern for some people. For me, it doesn't really bother me, but for some people it might. Let's get into it, though. So, going through Ernest Brown, he has some strengths, he has some weaknesses. He's not a perfect prospect, and he's a 5th round pick. Am I higher on him than I initially was? Just hadn't watched a little bit of him? Yes. I'm definitely higher on him now than I was before. Look, he's instinctive, he's powerful, and here's the weird thing that I wasn't expecting. The Rams put out those videos, as you guys probably know. All of those draft picks, they had the to kind of combine with it, they had those videos that scouts from the Rams department and all of that got to talk, and it was unveiled how they felt about said player. Ernest Brown's was interesting because you hear one of the guys and one of the scouts say, he thinks he can carve out a role for the Rams in 2021. I'm curious in the comments what you guys will think about that, but I kind of feel like I know what he means. That other edge spot, after Leonard Floyd is not fully set. So I think this is somebody that's kind of a tweener, edge and, kind of like an outside linebacker and a 3-4 defensive end. He's a bigger outside linebacker, so I'm not saying they would permanently use him there, but I could see it kind of similar to the way they tried to force Fox into that role, and then they realized he's just better on with his hand in the dirt and everything. So that was interesting. Look, he's got the size and body composition you want in an NFL defensive end. He's long with big hands. He's got some serious, weight behind those hands. He can pack a punch. He doesn't get comfortable, though, when he's getting blocked. And I love that, because there are a lot of guys, you'll see it on film, where you're like, all right, when are they going to do something? I'm waiting, right? And he doesn't really do that. Like, he gets behind a block and he's like itching to get out of that situation. Some guys will just, admit, okay, this play's dead. I'm not going to get past this block. I'll let this guy humiliate me on tape. And Ernest Brown is like, no, thank you. Very, itchy to get out of that. He is going to fight back. He's going to scrap. I do love that about Ernest Brown. On film, he just doesn't allow somebody to manhandle him, and I do appreciate that. It's hard for the offensive line, anybody on the offensive line, including tight ends that may block him, to move him. He's not really movable. I mean, this isn't somebody that you can just, redirect into, a different lane and try to, open things up for, another lane for the running back, or open things up for the quarterback to take off and scramble. This guy does not get pushed around very often. So that's one thing I noticed on film, is that he's really hard to redirect, and offensive line really, obviously, they don't enjoy that. So that's that. Awareness to get his hands up and bats passes at the line of scrimmage. Look, this guy's head is on a swivel, and he does a great job at the line of scrimmage where he sees, okay, I'm not going to get to the quarterback. What's the next step? And he knows the next step is, hey, I got to get my hands up there. I got to try. I wasn't able to take down the quarterback before he threw the football. And while I know it's up to my secondary to make a play in the secondary to stop this, I still can do one last thing. And then, that's him getting his hands up. I mean, he's long. He's got about 35-inch arms, I believe. He's a long defensive end. So because of that, he's going to use that length to his advantage at the line of scrimmage, and that's something NFL teams are going to salivate over. I know that's something the Rams were doing. Now, the key component there is not just the ability to put your hands up in the air and be like swatting the pass down. No, that's not it. What it is the awareness, realizing it's possible. If you just, randomly do this and you don't know what's going on, like, he's always in control. Like, because here's the thing, in the NFL or in anything, revolving football, there's multiple battles being won or being lost on the field. So while Ernest Brown needs to focus on winning his individual battle against said right tackle, tight end, double team, what have you, he also realizes the bigger battle, or rather the war, is this quarterback getting the ball out and doing damage downfield. And that's what I love, is that he realizes, okay, I gotta, disengage here. I'm not gonna win this battle. I'm not gonna get there in time. So he swats the ball, or puts his hands up there to give it opportunity, because he knows he has the length. That is good awareness. On top of that, one thing I really came away liking with him is his high motor. Now, he doesn't, and we'll get into this in the weaknesses section, but he doesn't necessarily have, he doesn't get a ton of sacks where he just absolutely took over the play. A lot of his sacks are earned, pretty much all of his sacks are earned when the play has been prolonged for whatever reason. The quarterback is now having to improvise or extend the play, and so he'll get that sack. But I do like that heavy motor, that nonstop motor. I see it. I like it. That's something that I definitely care about in a player, and he has that. We mentioned earlier the heavy hands. This is somebody, he packs a punch. He's going to get his hands on you as an offensive tackle. He's going to move you over. He does a great job of converting speed to power. And I think that's something that you'll notice on film, is that he can be he's like Clubber Lang, in the boxing ring, but instead it's to an offensive tackle. So I do like that for sure. And I think one thing I kept watching throughout this is that, obviously we talked about 9-game starter, but one thing I kept watching and feeling is that, wow, this guy's best game, his best days are coming. They're on their way. This is somebody that will be a better pro than he was a college player. He was a good rotational player, but I think he'll actually have a chance to maybe start in the NFL. And the Rams apparently seem to think, or at least a scout there, seems to think he can contribute this year. This is a guy they grabbed, no doubt, because of his size, that length, and on top of it, they kind of look at him like he's a younger guy, only had 9 starts. He doesn't have to play right away. All the pressure's off him because he's behind all these guys. They could, mold him into something. And that brings me to my next point. So what are they going to mold him into? I've heard Trey Flowers, as mentioned, of the Detroit Lions. Someone told me that Trey Flowers, and by the way, when I say somebody, it's a source. It's somebody that actually has knowledge. It's not just like my friend down the road. So just to point that out. But anyway, so Trey Flowers is very interesting. Again, kind of that tweener guy. Was with the Patriots in that multiple defense. Then he went over Matt Patricia in the Lions. He's still there, by the way. He's still really, really good. So, you know, I do see some of him. He's not as dynamic as Trey Flowers, but I do see that build. But the one that really stands out to me, aside from Morgan Fox, is Roy Robertson Harris. Now, he was with the Chicago Bears, and during the video that I'm mentioning, a scout says he can be like that Roy Robertson guy in Chicago. And I immediately saw exactly what he was saying. Like, that type of build, like, it's perfect. What is he going to do, Ernest Brown, to add to this defense? Well, I think one thing that he's going to do very well is he can crash the backfield. He does a nice job of leaking through, getting into the backfield, and he's a sure tackler. I like that. On top of it, we already talked about his, his hard-working, heavy motor type deal. So that's a good thing. He's not a true dominant pass rushing process. He's not even like a situational pass rusher at this point. He's going to have to get better in that department. But as far as stopping the run, I think he's ready to play immediately in that regard. He's a very, let's say he's a very smart player. And the way the scouts described it is that he's like a GPS locator. He does a great job noticing, what the offense is going to run, noticing alignments, things along that nature, and operating as such. That's a good thing. He scans, and then he reads and he reacts. I like that. Here's the problem, though. He has some weaknesses, and obviously he's a 5th-round pick. Every 5th-round pick would have a weakness or two. He's going to leave himself vulnerable to offensive line punches and things along that nature, because he leaves his chest like wide open. He's not a compact type of rusher or a defender, so he's going to, offensive linemen are going to be able to get their hands on him and make him pay because of that. And so that's an issue because that was happening in college. Obviously, the better coaching. He talked a lot with Eric Henderson during the process, defensive lines coach. But here's the fact, is that in the NFL, offensive linemen are way more technically sound than college. Everybody's better in the NFL. So leaving your chest open to be punched like that by a Lane Johnson coming off the right side or something like that, or a Trent Brown or a Trent Williams or somebody like that, that's gonna hurt, and that's gonna hurt a way that you didn't even feel in college. So that's something to keep in mind, is that you're gonna be neutralized at the point of attack by said offensive line. You ever hear stonewall? Of course you do. You've heard that term before. That you're gonna get stonewalled. So that's exactly the issue there. Also, he's lacking a toolbox of pass rushing maneuvers. So this guy has a mild counter, an inside counter. So I would not call it the best. He tries to use his speed, which he doesn't have a ton of long speed, and I understand he ran like a 540, so people are just going to assume he's not fast. Keep in mind, the 40-yard dash is running 40 yards. When does a defensive lineman have to run 40 yards down the field? Sure, if they want to be Montez Sweat and chase down the guy, I think it was Cam Akers in the Rams game, and run 40 yards to chase him down, okay, cool, that's great, that's awesome, that's awesome. But here's the problem, is that there are people that take that and they make that the end-all be-all. And when you're talking about a defensive lineman, potentially a tweener interior defensive lineman and an outside linebacker, the difference there with Ernest Brown is that he doesn't need that. He doesn't need to be that. So, he still has some quickness. He still has some short area burst, not a ton, but he doesn't have the long speed. That's all that testing told me. So I'm not too worried about that, but his pass rushing maneuvers, he has to add more to his toolbox, or he's going to have a really hard time rushing the passer in the NFL. And then another thing here, his sack production, again, was due to extended play. We talked about that. But he's too upright. The thing I notice here is that, he doesn't have a nice knee bend. He's not like an athletic stance all the time. Sometimes it's just like he's sprinting and he's just running towards the quarterback, and he'll take like a false step there and a false step here, and it's just not the greatest. So obviously you could call this nitpicking, but with Ernest Brown, that's one of the main things I noticed with him. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, what is Ernest Brown? Ernest Brown is a developmental prospect, for the Rams, right? That's what he is, right? I mean, he is a developmental guy that can potentially contribute this year. He's really good against the run. He's not great as a pass rusher. He's going to have to improve. He only started 9 games. He was a 5th-round pick. He doesn't have to go in immediately because you have all sorts of talent around him. So at the end of the day, can we expect big things out of him? Well, I'll tell you, right before I recorded this, I drafted him in my fantasy league. Yeah, I did. For those of you who are wondering why the hell I drafted a defensive player in my fantasy league, it is a defensive, individual defensive player dynasty. So I drafted him in like the 9th round, but I just figured I'd give him like a ringing endorsement there. Anyway, my point is that if you're looking for this guy to be Trey Flowers from the get-go, he's not going to do that. But if you let him develop with an Eric Henderson, maybe he develops more as a pass rusher. He becomes a monster against the run, goes from good to amazing against the run, and then you're playing with Donald, and magic can happen when you play with Donald. You saw what he did for Dante Fowler's production, what Dante Fowler's production meant to the Falcons. You saw what he's done for Leonard Floyd. I mean, Aaron Donald makes things easier. So you got to hope, in my opinion, you got to hope if you're a fan of Ernest Brown, or if you are Ernest Brown, you got to hope that, you can develop with Eric Henderson. You can move forward with this defense, because as long as you stick with Donald and you're on that field and you're a starter, you can produce. It does get easier. So at the end of the day, Ernest Brown, 5th-round pick. Did I love it at the time? No. Do I hate it now? No. Do I like it? Honestly, yes. I like Ernest Brown more than I did initially. So we'll see. But that's my thoughts on him. Can he contribute this year? I think he absolutely can in a rotational-based role. Is he Morgan Fox? He's kind of like Morgan Fox. I think essentially they have a Morgan Fox on the roster, kind of same deal, UDFA out of UTSA and Eric Banks. He already was coached by Eric Henderson, but when they went out and got Ernest Brown, that was them saying, yeah, we have a UDFA that can be like Morgan Fox, but what if we don't want that? What if we want a guy that has Morgan Fox floor, or close to Morgan Fox floor, with a ceiling of a Trey Flowers? That, my friends, is why they drafted Ernest Brown out of Northwestern in the 5th round. Hope you guys enjoyed. As always, this is the Jake Ellenbogen channel. If you like what you heard, you like what you saw, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Drop a like, and let's talk about it. Drop a comment. You guys take care and have a great day. Later.